Back in the scriptorium, Dimitrios is met with congratulations from the brothers. Even the priest Eustathius allows a rare smile to grace his features. As he lies in his bed, Dimitrios revisits the day's events, reflecting on Theodora's enigmatic words about diverging paths. In this moment, he feels like a piece in Theodora's intricate chess game. What a game indeed, he muses softly to himself before drifting into the arms of Morpheus. Upon receiving a summons, Dimitrios made his way to the Bishop of Constantinople. The bishop began, "The emperor has tasked me to support your mission of establishing a new monastery on the Sinai Peninsula. A sum of 5,000 solidi has been allocated from the state treasury for this project. Initially, you will be provided with 1,000 solidi to cover transportation, recruitment of a team, provisions, chartering a ship, and locating the site. Upon commencing the construction, you are to return to Constantinople to report on the progress and secure further funding. I have also compiled a list of skilled laborers who might be of assistance on your journey. You should take sea within a fortnight," he said, extending the document to Dimitrios. The bishop added somewhat candidly, "Personally, I have reservations about a deacon being elevated to abbot, particularly one so young. Nonetheless, it is the emperor's decree, and I shall abide by it. Congratulations, and may your mission be blessed." Perusing the list, Dimitrios pondered the essential trades for the initial phase of construction. An architect was crucial, as was a master stonemason, alongside a carpenter and a blacksmith. Other roles, such as decorators, general laborers, and gardeners, could be filled later. His immediate task was to conduct interviews with the candidates on the list, balancing the urgency of the project with the prudent management of a substantial yet finite budget. As evening descends, Dimitrios is deep in the library, studying maps and basic designs for monasteries, yet his thoughts keep drifting to Catherine. After asking around, he finally finds the way to Catherine's quarters. Standing in front of what he hopes is her door, Dimitrios inhales deeply, steadying himself before knocking softly. Time stretches out, leaving him torn between the hope of seeing her and the fear of reigniting feelings best left dormant. Soon a gentle voice inquires from the other side, "Who is it?" Unmistakably Catherine's. Dimitrios presses his palm against the door, longing to be closer, and says, "It's me, Catherine." A heavy silence follows, laden with anticipation, until she probes again. "What do you want?" He hesitates before admitting, "I want to see you." The sound of the lock turning breaks the silence, and the door cracks open slightly. Dimitrios steps in to find Catherine pausing mid-room, turning to face him as he closes the door behind him. She starts to undo her elegant red dress, revealing her shoulder. Without hesitation, Dimitrios moves to her, their lips meeting in a kiss filled with the complexity of their past and the uncertainty of their future. Later, lying together in the quiet aftermath, Dimitrios traces kisses along Catherine's dewy back, sensing her contemplative gaze. "You know we are not meant to be," she murmurs softly with a hint of sadness. "I know," he responds, heavy with the acceptance of their reality. "But I want to cherish whatever time we have." She turns to him, their kiss a silent pact of their shared moment, before she nestles into his embrace, seeking solace in their temporary haven. At lunch, Dimitrios extends an intriguing offer to George. "How would you feel about joining me in Sinai?" George, momentarily pausing with his spoon in the air, contemplates before responding, "You know my craft is in illumination, not stonework. I'd hardly make a decent mason." Dimitrios, eager for his friend's company, encourages him, "Consider it an adventure. We won't be confined to this place, pouring ink on paper all our lives. Besides, I need someone by my side whom I trust implicitly." George, half-joking, counters, "So you're suggesting we leave the grandeur of Constantinople to wander the deserts like Moses? I'm struggling to see the appeal." Dimitrios, understanding his hesitation, offers, "Take your time to decide. Meanwhile, could you lend a hand with the preparations? I'm swamped. George agrees to assist with the caveat, I'll help, but you'll need to clear it with Eustathius. That afternoon, the two delve into maps of Sinai. When Dimitrios points out a promising map, he asks George to create a duplicate, a task George estimates will take 2 days. The challenge of recruiting skilled builders for the monastery proves greater than expected. Persuading craftsmen to commit to years in the desert is daunting and expensive. Dimitrios observes that only the younger, unattached and less experienced, seem willing to embark on such a journey. Then an inspired thought strikes him. Why not recruit from the military ranks? This approach proves fruitful, attracting volunteers ready to exchange the battlefield for desert serenity. Among the 9 he chooses for the expedition, 6 are seasoned soldiers, ensuring not only skill but also security for the mission ahead. One morning George approaches Dimitrios visibly concerned. Where have you been? I couldn't find you last evening. Dimitrios offers a quick apology. Sorry, George, I've been tied up with some things. George, sensing something amiss, probes further. You've been scarce at dinner lately. Is everything all right? Dimitrios casts a cautious glance around, ensuring privacy. I've had some evening commitments to attend to. George, suspecting there's more to the story, inquires, do these commitments have a name? Dimitrios, a hint of sheepishness in his tone, confesses, yes, her name is Catherine. George, now understanding the situation better, remarks with a slight tease, Ah, I see. Lucky for you, you're not an abbot yet. Seems I won't be the only one making the larger sacrifices for this mission. Dimitrios' spirits lift, and he envelops George in a grateful embrace. Thank you, brother. George, half joking, adds, You'll have time to thank me later. By the way, I heard from a monk about an elder in the city monastery who's been to Mount Sinai. He could guide us to the precise location. Dimitrios, encouraged by this news, clasps George's shoulders. Could you follow up on that for me? Arranging passage on a ship set to sail to Alexandria within the week turns out to be straightforward. The real task begins with the procurement of supplies, armed with a list of essentials: shovels, paper, ink, measuring tools, tents, bags, various clothing sets, blankets, and ropes. Dimitrios, along with 3 companions, manages to acquire most of the necessary items. For the remaining supplies, he decides to wait until Alexandria, anticipating better deals and more suitable goods for the desert journey ahead. On their final night in Constantinople, the air was oppressively warm, the city's silence punctuated by an impending thunderstorm. Yet, it wasn't the storm that kept the lovers awake until the first light of dawn. When does your ship set sail? Catherine inquires, the morning's reddish hue casting a soft glow over her body. With the tide, early in the afternoon, Dimitrios answers gently. You should try to rest a bit, she suggests. No, I want to cherish every moment with you. The journey to Alexandria will offer ample time for rest, he responds, adding, Would you accompany me to the dock before I leave? Yes, she agrees, resting her head on his chest. But let me sleep for a while, lulled by the rhythm of your heart, tightening her embrace as Dimitrios strokes her hair soothingly. By midday, Dimitrios' 10 companions gather at the harbor, their supplies secured and ready for departure. Dimitrios conducts a final review of his map, funds, and the bishop's official mandate. Catherine, ever graceful in her black attire, acknowledges the group from a distance. The moment for farewells has arrived. They share a tender kiss and embrace for a long minute, Dimitrios feeling her tears on his skin. It's time to part. Catherine watches the vessel drift southward, while Dimitrios strains to keep his eyes on the solitary figure on the dock. His newfound companions beside him, all sharing a silent farewell. The voyage to Alexandria spanned 35 days, marked by stops at various islands, and culminating in the final stretch from Crete to Alexandria. This extended journey at sea served as a crucible for the men. forging bonds especially during the 2 tempests they encountered, one of which raged for 5 days, testing the endurance and spirits of the seafaring novices. The ordeal proved to be a valuable gauge of character, revealing the true mettle of Dimitrios' companions. Throughout the journey, Dimitrios maintained a watchful eye on Ioannis, the group's physician, whose offhand remarks occasionally betrayed hints of ulterior motives, raising Dimitrios' suspicions. Despite the challenges and undercurrents of tension, the group arrived in Alexandria by late August, greeted by the relentless sun and sweltering heat. As the ship gently coasts into Alexandria's bustling harbor, Dimitrios stands at the bow, his gaze sweeping over the city's ancient contours. Under his breath, he whispers a heartfelt tribute. "May your sacrifice, my sweet Catherine, have been for a greater cause." Arriving at destination mid-afternoon leaves Dimitrios with limited time to secure overnight accommodations for his crew. Opting for simplicity, they decide to spend one more night aboard the ship, much to the crew's preference for a tavern visit over immediate lodgings. The evening's festivities lead to 3 men going missing, igniting concern in Dimitrios, despite reassurances from the rest. By morning, with the trio still absent, Dimitrios' frustration peaks as he contemplates finding replacements. Relief washes over him when the men, still in high spirits from the night's revelry, return to the ship. Gregory, the seasoned stonemason and the eldest among them, claps Dimitrios on the back, jesting, "The guys were just sampling the local female delicacies. I told you there was no cause for alarm." As the crew disembarks and George coordinates with porters, Dimitrios seeks out the local monastery to request temporary lodging. Dimitrios and George are granted modest private quarters, while the others are accommodated in a dormitory. A welcome improvement over their shipboard quarters, and a familiar comfort akin to military barracks. During a communal lunch with the monastery's brothers, the local abbot, informed of Dimitrios' mission, advises patience, suggesting they delay their desert crossing until October or November to avoid the September heat. Heeding this counsel, Dimitrios decides to extend their stay for a month, allowing for final preparations and procurement. To contribute to the monastery during their stay, each man lends his skills to various repair and maintenance tasks, fostering a sense of unity and collaboration. This interlude also provides Basil, the architect, with the opportunity to devise several monastery designs that consider the unique geographic characteristics of their intended site. During their stay in Alexandria, the team members find various ways to spend their leisure time, with a number engaging in the city's vibrant nightlife of drinking and partying, a spree that lasts until their finances dwindle. Dimitrios, on the other hand, is drawn to the city's historical allure. He wanders through the storied streets of Alexandria, keen to trace the remnants of its glorious past. As Dimitrios strolls along the bustling harbor, he reflects on the Pharos lighthouse, once the beacon of Alexandria. This marvel of ancient engineering, which guided countless mariners through the ages, now stands diminished. The once towering structure that housed the famed lantern room has succumbed to time, leaving only a reduced form of its former self on Pharos Island. The lighthouse's masonry, partially eroded, carries the marks of relentless weathering. The Serapeum, once a venerated temple dedicated to Serapis, a fusion of the Egyptian god Osiris and the Greek god Hades, has vanished, a casualty of the Christian disregard for pagan edifices. Amidst this landscape of lost grandeur, the famed Library of Alexandria stands as a solitary vestige of the ancient world's splendor. However, its once magnificent collection has dwindled, the library reduced to a modest structure with sparse offerings of historical significance. Despite this, Dimitrios ensures to connect with the library's curator, valuing the link to the past. With George's diligent updates based on recent research, the map marking the location of Mount Sinai is confirmed by the abbot, solidifying their path forward. Preparations are complete. Each member of the team takes charge of their essential tools, provisions, and water. To support their journey across the challenging desert landscape, 22 mules have been procured, and the expertise of Nebamun, a local guide, has been enlisted. After the blessing of the abbot, as the skies cloud over, signaling the onset of their expedition. The caravan embarks on the arduous trek to Mount Sinai. The journey is estimated to span 45 to 60 days, covering the daunting expanse of 500 miles across the harsh terrain of the Sinai Peninsula. The initial leg of the journey, traversing the fertile delta of the Nile, was marked by an abundance of water and verdant landscapes, setting a serene backdrop for the caravan. 8 days in, the guide recommended encamping near the remnants of Pi-Ramesses, an ancient city steeped in pharaonic history. As the sun dipped low, casting its golden hue, the ruins of statues stood as silent witnesses to the city's former grandeur. The guide captivated everyone with tales of Moses' exodus from this very land, humorously remarking that had he been their guide, the Israelites' 40-year journey might have been drastically shortened. As the caravan progressed, the environment gradually shifted. The lush greenery gave way to sparser vegetation, and dust became a constant companion, signaling their approach to more arid territories. Dimitrios, mindful of the group's spirits, chose a coastal route over the direct desert path. This decision, while adding days to their journey, offered reprieves of scenic ocean views, fresher food and water sources, sustaining the morale of his companions amidst the challenging terrain. 30 days into their expedition, Theophilos the blacksmith began to falter. His steps weighed down by more than just the physical toll of the journey. It was later revealed that an encounter in Alexandria had left him with a lingering ailment, a souvenir the women left him with. Thankfully, the group's physician, armed with herbal remedies, was able to address Theophilos's condition, allowing the caravan to continue its momentous trek, each step echoing the ancient footsteps of prophets and pilgrims alike. As the caravan settled by the seaside one evening, the guide shared a sobering forecast. They were approaching the most demanding segment of their journey. Ahead lay the Sinai Peninsula's rugged terrain, where each step on the stony paths had to be measured and cautious. The guide cautioned about the potential challenges: narrow passages that might test the animal's resolve, the threat of falling boulders from the looming cliffs, and paths that could be obstructed by debris. Moreover, the possibility of rain posed a significant risk, as the barren landscape offered little to stem the flow of water, turning streams into torrents. Armed with this knowledge, the group bid farewell to the coast, embarking on what was expected to be the final week of their trek. Their path intersected with a few goat herders, whose casual confirmations of their route bolstered their spirits. Occasional springs dotted along their path provided much-needed respite, quenching the thirst of both men and beasts. Fortuitously, the weather remained in their favor, sparing them from the anticipated challenges. Upon reaching their destination, guided by a young local boy, the group was met with a sight that was anticlimactic, yet profoundly significant. The mountain of God stood unassumingly amidst its peers, devoid of any divine spectacle or the legendary burning bush. It was an ordinary mountain by all accounts, distinguishable only by the modest cairns left by previous pilgrims, marking it as a place of reverence. Contrary to the group's initial impressions, the local guide pointed out several bushes, claiming them to be the sacred bush of God. These bushes, however, bore the marks of the harsh desert environment, appearing more forlorn than divine, their foliage thinned by the grazing of local goats. Upon settling at their destination, the guide, after receiving his dues, took a mule and set off back towards Alexandria, leaving the group to face the challenges of building a monastery in the wilderness. The first task was to ensure a sustainable water supply. While a modest spring trickling from the mountain sufficed for the immediate needs of the men and animals, it was woefully insufficient for the construction needs of a monastery, especially for brickmaking. A reservoir was promptly constructed over 2 days to capture and store water, reducing dependence on the spring's variable flow. The necessity of a reliable well became evident, prompting the team to employ traditional water dowsing techniques with a wooden staff to identify a suitable digging site. Their efforts bore fruit 5 days later, as they struck water, and they spent the following week expanding and fortifying the well. The labor attracted the attention of local children, who found amusement in watching the men work in the otherwise barren landscape. A survey of the area revealed ample stone resources, including limestone and granite, crucial for construction. However, wood was scarce, only sufficient for the initial phase of building a rudimentary shelter for the team, offering protection from the harsh elements and serving as a base as they prepared to scale up the workforce for the main monastery construction. Foreseeing the need for a steady supply of food, wood, and iron for the upcoming stages, Dimitrios entrusted George with establishing a supply chain. With this in mind, Dimitrios, accompanied by a new guide and 4 mules, embarked on a critical journey to Aqaba, a significant trading port about 8 to 10 days' travel away, to secure these essential resources. This marked the beginning of a crucial phase in their mission, laying the groundwork for the monastery's construction amidst the solitude of the Sinai desert. The initial stages of leveling the ground and excavating trenches for the first structure were well underway when Dimitrios, while drafting blueprints with Basil under their tent, noticed that all the workers had suddenly ceased working and were engaged in light-hearted banter. Perplexed by this abrupt halt in productivity, Dimitrios took it upon himself to investigate the cause. Despite the ground appearing prepared and all materials in order, the workers stood idle with their tools at hand. Upon querying Gregory about the situation, he explained that work could not resume until a medium-sized stone was properly placed. It became evident that the men expected Dimitrios to set the stone as an example. Sensing an air of anticipation among the workers, Dimitrios cautiously lifted the stone and positioned it where Gregory had indicated. To his surprise, the men erupted into applause and cheers, some even offering congratulatory pats on the back, hailing him as the new abbot of the monastery of the Transfiguration of Mount Sinai. With newfound momentum, the pace of work quickened, allowing for the completion of a modest shelter just in time for Christmas and the arrival of cooler weather and snow. Meanwhile, George accomplished the impressive task of ensuring a steady influx of goods from Aqaba, orchestrating half of the journey by boat to land a substantial cargo on the beach, implementing 2 groups of 20 mules for continuous supply runs, including the much-appreciated addition of wine. He brought joy to the camp. With the recruitment of 30 local laborers, the stage was set for the commencement of genuine construction come March. Dimitrios, actively involved in the blueprint process, ensured that the monastery, built around the Bush of God, incorporated Dimitrios' insistence on a dedicated, well-protected room within the monastery, featuring a single entrance that could be easily concealed. The size of the future monastery was grandiose compared to anything in the region, boasting towering walls encircling its perimeter. Basil's estimate of 30 years for completion, without additional manpower, proved unacceptable to Dimitrios, prompting him to hire an additional 20 workers. A year into the main construction phase, the monastery emerged as the economic hub of the southern Sinai Peninsula, attracting merchants and traders from afar. Recognizing the need to update the emperor on the project's progress, Dimitrios resolved to travel to Pelusium alone, with 2 mules in tow to facilitate his journey to Constantinople by boat. Despite his responsibilities, Dimitrios harbored a strong desire to temporarily depart the site and immerse himself in a change of scenery for a few months. Just 70 days from his departure, Dimitrios finds himself back at the bustling Constantinople harbor as dawn breaks. The city unfolds before him, unchanged, with its majestic peaks epitomized by the Hagia Sophia and its less glamorous sides, where beggars and thieves mingle near the port. The vibrant markets, brimming with an array of goods, starkly contrast the monotonous diet he and his companions endured in the remote valleys of Sinai. Carrying only the bare essentials, Dimitrios navigates through the familiar streets towards the palace, driven by a singular purpose that fuels his steps. Arriving at what he believes to be Catherine's residence, he's greeted by a young woman, evidently a servant, who appears puzzled at his request to see Catherine. Dimitrios' attempt to peer inside for any sign of her proves futile. The servant insists no one by that name resides there. Another woman, her features strikingly Persian, joins the exchange, her curiosity piqued by Dimitrios' insistence. Despite her beauty and the air of authority about her, she cannot provide the answers Dimitrios seeks. She's occupied these quarters for a year, and the name Catherine holds no significance to her. After a brief conversation, she suggests he try his luck 2 doors down, where someone might recall the Catherine he seeks. The door swings open to reveal a familiar face, one of Theodora's former ladies-in-waiting, who immediately recognizes Dimitrios. "Come in," she beckons, her demeanor warm. Noticing a flicker of uncertainty cross Dimitrios's face, she clarifies, "I'm Eudokia." Guiding him to a table by the window, she pours a cup of herbal tea, its aroma filling the room. "I can surmise why you're here," Eudokia begins, her voice steady. "You're searching for Catherine, aren't you?" Dimitrios inquires about Catherine's whereabouts, prompting Eudokia to share the unfolding events. After the Empress passed, many of us lost our roles in the palace. Those with families returned to them, while a few, like Catherine, found themselves adrift. She was particularly unsettled after you left, briefly visiting her parents before returning, only to realize that the palace no longer held a place for Theodora's attendance. Catherine, driven by necessity or perhaps a desire for stability, married a nobleman in Cappadocia, a widower who welcomed her and her 2 children into his home. At the mention of children, Dimitrios is visibly taken aback. Eudokia reassures him with a gentle smile. "They're not yours. She had them with her previous husband. They've been with their grandparents all this while. Catherine likely sought to secure their future and be closer to them. It's a choice of safety and stability." Dimitrios, puzzled, questions how Eudokia managed to stay within the palace. "The emperor's affection for Theodora endures. He hasn't remarried," she explains. "I serve certain personal needs for him now among other women," she adds, leaving a silence that speaks volumes. Eudokia's advice to Dimitrios is frank. "It's best not to pursue Catherine. Whether she's found happiness or not, a reunion could only complicate things for both of you. Treasure the moments you shared and let life move forward." After expressing his gratitude to Eudokia, Dimitrios departs, finding himself adrift in the palace corridors. The sense of alienation in what was once a familiar setting weighs heavily on him. Driven by a need for familiarity, he heads to the scriptorium, curious if his old quarters might welcome him back. Unsurprisingly, the scriptorium stands unchanged, as if suspended in time. The same scholars occupy their usual spots, including Peter, whose demeanor has grown more pompous with his elevated status. Conversations with old acquaintances about past adventures are briefly interrupted by Patriarch Anthimus's entrance. His casual greeting, Deacon Dimitrios, is met with Dimitrios's reply, "Priest Anthimus, it is Abbot Dimitrios now." This did not sway the priest one way or another. In a different room than his previous one, Dimitrios lays down, his mind replaying the journey that began with his encounter with Empress Theodora. In his meeting with the bishop the following day, Dimitrios shares updates on the Sinai project, showcasing George's detailed sketches and blueprints of the ongoing construction at Mount Sinai. When Dimitrios suggests presenting these documents to the emperor himself, the bishop, reclining in his chair, dismissively assures him that he'll take care of it, intending to show the drawings to the emperor personally. This kind of spotlight usurpation might have irked Dimitrios 2 years prior, but his priorities have since shifted. Fully embracing Theodora's mission, Dimitrios feels a strong pull to return to Sinai, his connection to the project transcending any personal recognition. Before departing, he broaches the topic of additional funding, to which the bishop provides a non-committal response, promising to follow up in due course. Within a mere 3 weeks, Dimitrios manages to secure additional funding to sustain the monastery's construction for another 5 years. With renewed resources, he returns to Egypt, accompanied by 3 master builders to expedite the construction process. However, upon his arrival at the Sinai site, while pleased with the overall progress, Dimitrios is disheartened to learn that 2 original team members have departed the project during his absence. One tranquil late afternoon, as the sun casts a warm glow over the mountains, George finds Dimitrios lost in thought, gazing out over the burgeoning construction site. "What's on your mind?" George inquires, breaking the silence. Dimitrios, his eyes still fixed on the landscape before him, responds thoughtfully. "I've been pondering a new name for our monastery." Curious, George, now sharing the view, prompts, "And what might that be?" Dimitrios, momentarily lost in contemplation, finally articulates, "Saint Catherine." Reflective quietude envelops them as the setting sun bathes their faces in a soft, reddish hue, gradually giving way to the encroaching shadows of dusk. "Ah, after the patron saint of Alexandria?" George surmises. "Yes, after the patron saint of Alexandria." Dimitrios affirms, a gentle smile playing on his lips, a sentiment mirrored by George. As the monastery project continues, Dimitrios notes the dwindling number of the original team, with 5 more men having departed over 2 years. He understands the challenges posed by the isolation and monotony of their desert location. Seeking to address these concerns, he visits Ioannis, the group's physician, in his well-equipped infirmary. "You've been with us for 5 years, Ioannis. We're still a long way from finishing the monastery. Don't you miss your family, your home?" Dimitrios probes, concern evident in his voice. Ioannis pauses his task, placing a jar on the shelf, and turns to Dimitrios with a resigned expression. "I have no one waiting for me back home. I'm content here. Besides, I still owe service to the emperor for another 4 years. Returning to Constantinople could mean being pressed back into military duty," he explains, trying to mask his underlying unease. Dimitrios, sensing there's more to Ioannis' story, presses further. "I know there's more to it, Ioannis. We've been through a lot together. You can be honest with me." Caught off guard by Dimitrios' insistence, Ioannis halts mid-motion, the gravity of his secret weighing heavily on him. After a tense pause, he confesses in a low voice, "I killed a man. They were getting too close, and fleeing with you was my only escape. If I return, I'm certain to face execution." Dimitrios, frozen by the revelation. The air between them grows thick with tension as they grapple with the weight of Ioannis' confession. Ioannis turns toward Dimitrios and confesses, "I killed an official. He was here to collect a debt, and in my fear, I took his life. It wasn't out of love or vengeance, but sheer panic. An innocent logothete, merely doing his duty." A heavy silence falls, Dimitrios' thoughts racing. Finally, Dimitrios speaks. "It's not like I could hand you over to the local authorities. You are now on holy ground, protected by God." Looking around, he adds, "As long as you remain here, you are under his protection, doing his bidding." With solemnity, Dimitrios blesses Ioannis, making the sign of the cross. "In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, Amen." He adds, "May these walls grant you absolution." With that, Dimitrios departs, leaving Ioannis alone, who makes the sign of the cross in silent contemplation. As the seasons unfold in Sinai, marked by the stark contrast between the scorching summers and the snow-capped winters, the passage of time is keenly felt through the dwindling reserves of gold. With time becoming increasingly precious, significant progress has been made on the monastery's construction. The perimeter walls now stand completed, and the foundational structures are either finished or nearing completion. Basil, before his departure, meticulously reviewed and confirmed that all the blueprints were fit for purpose. In a departure from his initial approach, Dimitrios now opts to engage local artisans for the remaining work, recognizing the value and expertise they bring. The next phase of construction will require skilled painters, plasterers, and decorators to breathe life into the stone walls. Additionally, there's a need to furnish the interiors, which adds another layer of complexity and expense. But with Dimitrios' final plan lying elsewhere, it is time to head toward Constantinople again. Now adept at navigating the desert and well-versed in local customs, Dimitrios makes swift progress to the port of Pelusium. Upon his return to Constantinople, the city's grandeur, though still awe-inspiring, no longer holds the same enchantment for Dimitrios. After taking some time to rest and reconnect with the brethren at the scriptorium, he seeks an audience with the bishop to provide an update on the monastery's progress. However, the new bishop seems indifferent to the monastery's developments. Instead, he orchestrates a more significant encounter, arranging a private meeting between Dimitrios and the emperor. In the understated elegance of the emperor's quarters, Dimitrios reflects on their simplicity compared to Theodora's lavish settings. The emperor's voice interrupts his thoughts. "I remember you, young man," he remarks. "Has it been 5 years?" Dimitrios corrects him gently. "8, your majesty," with a note of hesitation in his voice. As Dimitrios stands at the center of the room, the emperor, seated by an open window, enjoys his breakfast fruits. The morning is tranquil and serene. "You worked alongside the empress, did you not?" the emperor inquires slowly. Dimitrios responds with a hint of joy. "Yes, your majesty, in the months leading up to her departure." The emperor continues. "In her final days, you likely spent more time with her than I. Tell me about the progress of the Mount Sinai monastery." Dimitrios approaches, spreading blueprints and drawings across the emperor's table. With a mix of eagerness and awkwardness, he details every facet of the monastery, the surrounding community, and the landscape, captivating the emperor with his narrative. The emperor reflects, "I've always puzzled over my wife's last wish and her choice in you. But it's clear you're honoring her vision. You have my unwavering support, Abbot." He assures Dimitrios that the treasury will provide a letter of credit for the project's needs. As a servant is waved over to offer Dimitrios some fruit, he's delighted to find Eudokia fulfilling the role, her smile broad and welcoming. The dim glow of Dimitrios's lamp pierces the darkness as he gently pushes open the door, revealing the secluded treasure of Theodora's library. Before him lies a collection of over 100 books and countless parchment scrolls, their preservation immaculate, a testament to quality of their storage. Clutching the letter penned by the empress, Dimitrios secures it within his garments, then beckons the waiting servants inside. The room soon brightens with additional lamps they place around, illuminating the space as they meticulously gather the precious volumes.
"Handle these with the utmost care. They are as invaluable as your lives," Dimitrios instructs solemnly.
As the men continue their task, something glints in the periphery of Dimitrios's vision. Stooping, he discovers a silver round earring adorned with a black stone in the middle nestled in a corner. A relic, perhaps, of a bygone era. A mix of confusion and recognition washes over him, followed by a poignant smile. Could this have belonged to Catherine on that faithful day? He muses silently. He lifts the earring to his nose, hoping for a lingering trace of her presence, though no scent remains. With a lingering glance at the earring, Dimitrios steps back, ensuring the books are securely packed into trunks. In the ensuing days, bathed in Constantinople's abundant sunlight, Dimitrios sets forth with a clear objective. Navigating the bustling merchant streets, he zeroes in on the quarter renowned for its goldsmiths. Amidst the shimmering displays, he selects a shop known for its quality selection. Upon entering, he's greeted by the attentive shopkeeper. With purpose, Dimitrios unfurls a cloth, revealing the earring within, and presents it to the proprietor for consideration. Dimitrios navigates the palace corridors with a sense of purpose, bypassing the door to Catherine's former quarters and continuing further down the hallway. He pauses at Eudokia's door and knocks. The familiar maiden answers, her recognition of Dimitrios evident in her greeting. "Good afternoon, Abbot," Eudokia says, the maiden stepping aside to let him in. "Good afternoon, Lady Eudokia," Dimitrios greets, a playful tone in his voice. "I hope to catch you here, knowing the emperor is occupied with court matters this afternoon." Eudokia smiles, a hint of mischief in her eyes. "What a delightful coincidence. I was just thinking how pleasant it would be to stroll through the gardens, escorted by a distinguished and handsome gentleman. Would you be so kind as to fulfill that role, Dimitrios?" "Absolutely. It would be my utmost pleasure," Dimitrios responds, his grin matching her playful demeanor. As they meander through the vibrant garden, Eudokia confides, "In my role, it seems no man dares even for a simple chat. The emperor has his ways of defining propriety." Her grip on Dimitrios's forearm remains formal, yet gentle. Dimitrios, with a hint of jest, responds, "I trust the emperor might overlook this minor indiscretion on my part." "You're fulfilling the wishes of his beloved wife," Eudokia notes. "In his eyes, that's a noble endeavor. What brings me the honor of your visit today, Abbot?" "It's quite personal, yet profoundly important to me," Dimitrios reveals. "I embark for Sinai again at dawn, with no plans to return here. I sought the comfort of familiar company, one last time." Eudokia's smile is bittersweet as she acknowledges, "I can offer you that comfort, nothing beyond. You're not returning, then?" There's a tinge of envy in me. We both serve Theodora's memory, yet your legacy with her will endure. Mine will conclude with Emperor Justinian's reign, but I'll carry many memories. Their walk becomes a journey down memory lane, filled with laughter and reflections. As the afternoon wanes, they find themselves at Eudokia's doorstep. "Farewell, Lady Eudokia. May you find favor in God's eyes," Dimitrios bids her. Eudokia glances around cautiously, then, seizing the moment, she reaches up to share a lasting kiss with Dimitrios from the tip of her toes. As she steps back, she playfully cleans his lips with her thumb, her eyes sparkling. "Should this be your final farewell to a woman's touch, let it be memorable. Farewell and Godspeed, Abbot Dimitrios Gregorius." With a final poignant look, she retreats inside, leaving Dimitrios in a reflective silence, his fingertips lingering on his lips. Following a 3-week voyage, Dimitrios sets foot in Seleucia's bustling harbor. As he disembarks, the captain calls out a reminder that their departure for Alexandria is slated in 3 days. Squinting under the bright sun, Dimitrios calculates, "If I press on, I can reach Antioch by mid-afternoon." The journey ahead, a traverse across the undulating Mediterranean terrain, would daunt many, but Dimitrios, now seasoned by the harsh Sinai climate, finds the challenge within his stride. In the bustling heart of Antioch, Dimitrios pauses, his gaze sweeping over the cityscape. A soft murmur escapes him. "You were so young and innocent, yet so strong. I pray for you, Margaret." With reverence, he traces the sign of the cross in the air, a silent prayer dedicated to her memory. Seeking shelter, he heads to a nearby monastery, securing lodging for the night with a brief introduction. Dawn finds Dimitrios at Antioch's cathedral, a structure bearing the scars of centuries' earthquakes and reconstructions diminishing its once grandeur. Inside, he requests an audience with the bishop, but is asked by a priest to return the next day. Undeterred, Dimitrios arrives at the cathedral the following day, only to be met with the same deferral. Frustration mounting, he asserts his authority. Invoking the names of Emperor Justinian and Empress Theodora, "I demand to see the bishop immediately," Dimitrios insists. "Failure to comply will bring consequences he'll regret." The intimidated priest hastens towards the cathedral's depths to convey the urgent message. An agitated bishop approaches Dimitrios, his displeasure evident. "What is this I hear about an abbot issuing commands?" He scrutinizes Dimitrios. "You scarcely resemble an abbot." Dimitrios, maintaining composure, begins, "Your Excellency, I'm on an imperative mission and seek your consent to—" His words are abruptly interrupted by the bishop's sharp retort. "You shall receive nothing from me, young man. I command you to vacate these grounds immediately," the bishop declares, turning his back. Undeterred, Dimitrios asserts, "Should I return to Constantinople empty-handed, be assured, the emperor's displeasure will descend upon you." The bishop whirls around, skepticism etched on his face. "And why would an abbot have the emperor's ear, assuming you are who you claim?" He questions disdainfully. Dimitrios presents his credentials. These documents affirm my commission by the emperor himself to erect a monastery on Mount Sinai. This letter, bearing the late Empress Theodora's signature, grants me unhindered passage to complete my task. The bishop scrutinizes the papers. There's nothing here obligating my assistance. What is it you seek exactly? Empress Theodora entrusted her library to me. I've learned that certain artifacts reside within the Church of St. Peter. I must retrieve them, Dimitrios explains. After a moment's consideration, the bishop relents, albeit begrudgingly, handing back the papers. The Church of St. Peter is merely a cave. Take whatever it is you're after, and be on your way. He then addresses a nearby priest. Escort the abbot to St. Peter, and ensure his departure thereafter. Traversing the rugged mountain path, Dimitrios and the accompanying priest finally arrive at the secluded church. Carved directly into the cliff face, its stone facade merges seamlessly with the natural landscape. From this vantage point, they're granted a breathtaking view over the sprawling city of Antioch below. Upon their arrival, they're greeted by two monks dedicated to the church's upkeep. The priest accompanying Dimitrios quickly requests the presence of the local clergy, while the other monk leads them through the entrance, welcoming them into the cool sanctuary carved from the mountain itself. Inside the church, the cool air offers a respite from the heat outside. The cave's arch, adorned yet showing signs of wear, speaks of a place of worship in need of care. Undeterred, Dimitrios strides towards a gallery on the left, delving deeper into the mountain's embrace, despite a monk's protests that the area is off-limits to visitors. Dimitrios arrives at a secluded room, its walls bearing the image of a cave, as mentioned by the bishop. Scattered amphoras on the floor hint at the monk's means of leisure, but Dimitrios remains focused on his task. He examines the wall's base, searching for a loose section. At this moment, the church priest arrives, questioning Dimitrios' presence in this sacred space. Using a found spoon, Dimitrios begins to scrape away at the wall, the two clerics discussing the situation in hushed tones. He calls for digging tools, and a shovel is quickly handed to him by one of the monks. The wall, less formidable than it appears, crumbles under his efforts, unveiling a hidden chest within. The atmosphere intensifies as the clergymen, gathered around Dimitrios, watch in awe. A monk, puzzled by the unexpected find, inquires about the origins of the mysterious chest. With a determined tug, Dimitrios frees the chest, causing fragments of the ancient wall and a cloud of dust to cascade down. He enlists a monk's assistance to transport the chest to the church's main hall, where daylight would unveil its secrets more clearly. The group converges around the enigmatic chest, their collective curiosity piqued about its contents. As Dimitrios carefully lifts the lid, an initial glimpse of old fabric meets their eyes. With gentle hands, he peels back the layers of cloth, and beneath this modest shroud, a trove of ancient books is unveiled. As the captain squints at the midday sun, his gaze lands on an approaching cart. Dimitrios and a monk at the helm, led by two sturdy donkeys. The cart halts beside the ship, prompting a grin from the captain.
"You're just in time, Father Dimitrios. We were nearly off without you," he remarks cheerfully.
Dimitrios, with a light-hearted jest, retorts, "Seems fortune isn't favoring you today, you old sea rogue." Raising his hand in a friendly gesture, he adds, "Would you mind sending a couple of your crew to help us hoist this chest aboard?" Upon his arrival in Alexandria, Dimitrios ensures the precious collection of ancient texts is safely transferred to a nearby monastery, where he has sought temporary shelter. After allowing himself a brief respite, he is drawn to the Library of Alexandria, driven by an essential task that lingers on his agenda. Wandering amidst the vast collection, Dimitrios takes in the myriad of works that line the shelves, momentarily losing himself in the expanse of accumulated knowledge. Eventually, he steps forward, introducing himself to the staff, and requests a meeting with the curator. To Dimitrios' mild surprise, the curator, a face he remembers from a visit 8 years prior, does not immediately recognize him. Given the library's bustling atmosphere, Dimitrios suggests a more secluded conversation, prompting the curator to guide him to the relative privacy of his office. Once settled, the curator inquires, "How can I assist you, Abbot?" revealing his awareness of Dimitrios' identity. "So, you do remember me by my title," Dimitrios observes. The curator admits, "Your name is known to me, but I must confess, faces elude me. Your work on the monastery of Mount Sinai is highly regarded in our community. It's an honor to host you in our modest library." Dimitrios, cutting to the heart of his visit, addresses the curator. "I am keenly aware of the legendary scope of the great library's collection in its prime. What's presented here barely casts a shadow of its former glory. I'm convinced there's more beneath the surface, hidden from plain sight." The curator's confusion is palpable as he responds, "I must apologize, Abbot, but what you see here encompasses the entirety of our collection. All our texts are sanctioned by the Church, and we seek no knowledge beyond that." Dimitrios, undeterred, leans in slightly, his voice firm yet respectful. "Esteemed curator, if you are as dedicated a guardian of knowledge as I believe, then I'd wager there's a concealed archive beneath this building, where ancient tomes lie dormant, awaiting rediscovery. I'm looking you directly in the eye to say those books require preservation, and I am convinced that I am the one to ensure it." The curator, skeptical, retorts, "Assuming such a repository exists as a high-ranking cleric, your obligation would be to eliminate any heretical material. Therefore, any such books are effectively lost to time." Dimitrios, with a tone of understanding, elaborates, "I arrived yesterday by sea with over 300 volumes I promised to safeguard at the monastery in Mount Sinai, as per Empress Theodora's wishes. My belief is that the Empress foresaw the monastery's remote location as the ideal haven to protect this knowledge, concealing it from the Church, within the Church itself." The curator, now contemplative, concedes, "Very well, Abbot. I shall make inquiries on your behalf. Should I unearth anything of interest, I'll ensure you're informed. In the meantime, I must ask that you refrain from visiting. Where might I reach you?" "At the local monastery," Dimitrios replies, nodding in acknowledgement as he prepares to take his leave. The following morning, as Dimitrios enjoys his breakfast with the monastery's brethren, a monk approaches him, slightly apologetic for the interruption. "Father, forgive the intrusion, but the curator from the library has come seeking you, claiming it's a matter of some urgency." Dimitrios, acknowledging the message, promptly cleans his mouth and stands to receive his guest. Upon meeting the curator, Dimitrios' initial disappointment is palpable, noting the curator's empty hands. Nevertheless, they exchange customary pleasantries, after which the curator gets straight to the point. "Abbot, I may have stumbled upon something of interest to you. However, I need to verify the authenticity of your claims first." Dimitrios, puzzled by this request, inquires, "And how might I prove my sincerity to you?" The curator, resolute in his approach, suggests, "Show me the collection you've brought. I wish to inspect it myself." Willingly, Dimitrios leads the curator to his modestly sized room, now crowded with trunks. He opens several at random, revealing their precious contents. Epicurus, Lucretius, Sappho, Aristophanes, Cicero, Petronius, and others treasures that would likely be condemned if discovered. Believe me, these manuscripts are far safer in my care than they would be in Constantinople or Antioch, Dimitrios asserts, locking eyes with the curator to emphasize his point. "Given the knowledge I possess, I'd wager your Haydn collection might be even more remarkable." The curator, intrigued, picks up one of the books and notices the distinctive Great Seal of the Library of Alexandria imprinted on it. He looks up at Dimitrios, a new understanding dawning between them. "Let's meet at the agora as the sun sets," he proposes, leaving the monastery. As the sun's last rays brush the rooftops, the marketplace begins to quiet. Dimitrios, caught in a rhythm of anxious pacing, scans the dwindling crowd for the curator's arrival. As night embraces Alexandria, the streets empty further, heightening Dimitrios' sense of isolation until the curator appears. Slightly winded, extending his apologies for the delay. Without wasting a moment, the curator guides Dimitrios through the labyrinthine heart of the city, venturing into increasingly narrow and neglected streets. Their journey culminates at a nondescript door, behind which a middle-aged man scrutinizes Dimitrios before silently allowing entry. They traverse a dilapidated courtyard, descending a narrow staircase, illuminated only by the flicker of an oil lamp passed into the curator's keeping. The path leads them to a locked entrance, beyond which lies a descent into the depths of Alexandria's storied past. The curator reveals that this concealed chamber once served as a repository for one of the city's library annexes. As they step into the modestly sized chamber, Dimitrios is immediately struck by the profound significance of its contents. Though the collection is small, each book and scroll casing radiates a sense of immense historical value. The curator shares a bit of history, his voice tinged with a hint of mystery. More than 30 years back, before I took up the role of curator, the church uncovered another hidden chamber akin to this one. The contents of that chamber vanished, presumed lost forever. This room, as you see, is rich with texts on ancient Egypt and extends to include Babylonian, Assyrian, and Phoenician works. However, that other collection was a treasury of Greek and Roman literature. Some of the books you've brought with you, I recognize them immediately as part of that vanished trove. It gives me hope that perhaps not everything was lost in that raid. He gestures broadly at the shelves around them. This collection here, it holds a significance perhaps even beyond that of the Greek one. Contrary to what you might believe, the library I oversee is devoid of any material deemed controversial by the church. In fact, it's been subjected to 2 thorough inspections by the bishop's orders. But I've chosen to trust you with this knowledge, fearing the potential discovery of these texts. They hold insights so profound that the church would undoubtedly shun them from the light of day. Passing the lamp to Dimitrios, the curator selects with great care 3 medium-sized scrolls and one particularly large, encased in a sturdy sheath. These, he asserts, are the crown jewels of our collection. Their value is beyond measure. Their loss would be irreplaceable. The curator carefully unfurls the first scroll, casting a reverent gaze upon its ancient script. This one recounts the tale of Pharaoh Akhenaten, often hailed as the pioneer of monotheism, presenting a narrative that challenges the church's traditional teachings about the inception of God, he explains, his voice laced with the gravity of the revelation. He then proceeds to the second scroll, delicately spreading it open. This text delves into the mythology surrounding Horus, an Egyptian deity whose life story bears striking parallels to that of Christ. The similarities are too profound to dismiss as mere coincidence. Dimitrios, peering over the curator's shoulder, recognizes familiar narratives woven into the ancient glyphs. As the third scroll is revealed, the curator's tone becomes more solemn. These final 2 scrolls hold immense significance. They are said to originate from the very tomb of Ramses II. This scroll offers a narrative that's etched into the collective memory of many, yet it presents a perspective that diverges sharply from the known. It recounts the Exodus, but through the eyes of Ramses II himself. The account is unsettling, to say the least. With great care, the curator sets aside the first 3 scrolls, making room for the last and most imposing of them all. He extracts a scroll of unparalleled length from its protective casing, unrolling the initial segment for Dimitrios to behold. Behold, one of ancient Egypt's most monumental creations. Spanning nearly 150 feet, this scroll is likely the sole surviving complete Book of the Dead, rendered in a single scroll format. The craftsmanship is extraordinary. The calligraphy, the vibrant hues, and the meticulous application of gold leaf speak of an artistry that has withstood the ravages of time. With a sense of awe, the curator adds, "This document is not just a funerary text, it's the cornerstone of our collective heritage. Within its lengths, one can find the precursors to the 10 Commandments, and much more. It's a testament to the foundational beliefs that would eventually shape the Torah and the Bible." This scroll right here is a cornerstone of our civilization. The entire collection is now in your care, the curator declares, a weighty resolve in his voice. While not every text here stirs controversy like those four, each piece, be it on medicine, agriculture, diplomatic correspondences, or poetry, holds immeasurable value. But should you face the dire need to prioritize, ensure the last two scrolls are preserved above all else. Caught off guard by the enormity of the responsibility, Dimitrios can only muster a simple response. I'll need a considerable number of mules for this. Regaining his composure, he then inquires, how long will it take to securely pack these treasures for their journey across Sinai? As he hands over all the coins in his possession, adding, there's more if needed. The curator estimates about 3 days should suffice. Excellent. Shall we reconvene here in 3 days to confirm everything is prepared? Dimitrios proposes, setting the plan in motion. With 30 mules and a half-dozen men enlisted for the expedition, Dimitrios meticulously orchestrates the transfer of one trunk at a time to the monastery over the following days, minimizing attention. Converting some letters of credit into cash further facilitates his preparations. Now standing on the brink of departure 2 weeks later, Dimitrios feels a renewed sense of purpose, bolstered by his familiarity with the path that lies ahead and the sacred charge he carries. Dimitrios surveys his secluded library, the flicker of oil lamps casting shadows across the sparse shelves that cradle his treasured books and scrolls. Despite the room's austere conditions, his expression reveals a quiet satisfaction. He transitions from the dimly lit library to his sun-drenched office above, a stark contrast in ambiance. Extinguishing the lamp and placing it on a table, he secures the shelf-like door that conceals the library's entrance, ensuring its contents remain a secret. His office, while modest, is comfortably furnished, reflecting a blend of practicality and personal taste. From his desk, the ambient sounds of construction, the rhythmic chiseling of stone, the sawing of wood, the commanding shouts of workers drift in, a constant reminder of the monastery's ongoing expansion. It's been 3 years since his return from Alexandria, years during which Dimitrios has not ventured beyond the monastery's walls. Before him lie 2 significant seals, one representing the monastery of the Burning Bush, its design featuring a radiant bush akin to the one gracing the monastery's courtyard. The other, a seal depicting an open book set against Mount Sinai's backdrop, inscribed with Saint Theodora of Light, a mirror image etched into the seal. Engrossed in his task, Dimitrios pens multiple letters. One is addressed to the emperor, updating him on the monastery's progress and readiness to serve its sacred purpose. The remainder, destined for various bishops and monastic communities, extends an invitation to the monastery of Mount Sinai, now a sanctuary for scholarly pursuit amidst the divine tranquility of the mountain. Through these letters, Dimitrios seeks contributions to enrich the monastery's library, aspiring to transform it into a luminary beacon of knowledge and learning. 8 months have passed, and the chapel now resonates with the solemn prayers of about 30 monks, gathered under the guidance of Abbot Dimitrios on this sacred day commemorating the Nativity. Clad in his somber black robes, Dimitrios stands before the congregation, arms outstretched towards the imposing cross that adorns the chapel wall, his stance a reflection of the crucifixion, leading the devotions with a fervor that sends puffs of chilled breath into the cold air. As the prayer service concludes and Dimitrios turns to address his brethren, a rosary with a sizable silver cross sways gently around his neck, catching the dim light of the chapel. However, it's the more subdued piece of adornment that draws a quieter intrigue, a silver necklace from which dangles a round pendant, its centerpiece a lustrous black stone, is resting on his heart.